there's this guy named A.N. Wilson. I'm
Yep.
sure you know who he is. He wrote this book, Jesus, a Life. Interesting points in that book. And, again, I'm sure we could go on for at least an hour on the different points that he makes. But I'll zone in on just one because it's interesting to me. So he thought that, okay, it seems to me from reading the texts in the New Testament that Jesus seemed to think that the end was coming very soon. And like, for instance, I guess the strongest evidence for that would be Matthew 16:28. Truly I tell you, some of you will not taste death before you see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. He said that to his disciples. They all died. So what would your, I guess, to ask you the question, what would your idea be on that, I guess your counter argument to the opinion that Jesus and Paul thought that the end times were coming very soon?
Okay, well, the verse you're talking about, or the section you're talking about, is Matthew 16. That's when Jesus is with his disciples at Caesarea Philippi, and Jesus asks Peter, who am I? And Peter says, you are the Son of the Blessed One. You're the Messiah. You're the Christ. And upon this rock, Jesus says, I'm going to build my church. And he's using a play on words there because Peter's name means rock. And there were rocks there at Caesarea Philippi where the goddess Pan was worshipped and all this. Anyway, there's a lot going on in that passage. And he says, some of you won't taste death until you see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Well, Matthew 17:1, right after that, is the Transfiguration. And right next to Caesarea Philippi, because I've been there many times, is Mount Hermon, which is probably where the Transfiguration took place. So I think Jesus at that point is referring to his Transfiguration, that they would see that. So they didn't die. There's a more problematic passage, though, and that's in Matthew 24, the Olivet Discourse, where Jesus says, the sun will be darkened, the stars will fall from the sky, the moon will not give its light, and all this.
Yep.
And it seems like he's predicting the end of the world there. The problem for people who say he's only predicting the end of the world is that he's actually quoting from Isaiah 13. And Isaiah 13 is describing a judgment on Babylon using the same type of language. Now, this is known as apocalyptic literature or apocalyptic language. It's exaggerated language about the physical universe and how it's going to basically disintegrate, even though it's not literal. And so in Isaiah 13, when Babylon was taken out, the stars did not fall from the sky, the sun did not fail to give its light or stop giving its light, etc. It was just an exaggerated way of saying it would be a calamity on them. When Jesus is saying that in Matthew chapter 24, what he's saying is there's going to be a calamity. The Son of Man is going to come on the clouds with great power and is going to judge this generation. He says before this generation passes away, all these things would occur. He said that in about 30 AD or 33 AD. A generation is 40 years. It happened in 70 AD. Because he came as a judge, and in the Old Testament, Yahweh would ride a cloud in judgment. So when Jesus says the Son of Man will come in judgment, riding on the clouds, that meant he was coming in judgment. And in that case, it was the Roman army coming in judgment on Jerusalem and on the city, and that state did not exist again until 1948. So the judgment did come. Now he's actually talking about a two-tiered prophecy. One is a short-term prophecy that's going to happen in that generation, and he's also talking about the end of the world to a certain extent, because in the parallel passage over in Luke, when he's talking about the Olivet Discourse, it's not called that in Luke, but it's the same kind of thing. He says, if you're in Jerusalem, flee to the mountains. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if it's really the end of the world, does it make any sense to flee to the mountains? No, that's going to be gone too. So he's talking about a short-term judgment, but it also illustrates a longer judgment. So Jesus is not a false prophet there. He's using prophecy the way that the Bible uses prophecy frequently, a short-term fulfillment and then a long-term fulfillment.